Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Women's group calls for Trinidad and Tobago government and opposition to work together on legislation against gender-based violence. This story takes the lead in our 1048th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 11th February 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world? And you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. TV6's political editor, Jewel Brown, spoke with Ashley Burnett, founder of Feminit, an organization that calls for government and opposition to work together.
I'm Ashley Burnett, and I'm the founder of Feminit, which is the Caribbean feminist NGO. And so we're out here today with this protest that's organized by GDS Ignite, and there are several other NGOs and students from the UWI who are really advocating for change in our justice system, for reform, for police reform, for public transport reform, for public education reform. Since 2019, the Minister of Works, put together, said that it's going to be a national transportation plan. And we really need to know what's the plan. What's the plan for us who are taking to public transport, And so once these things are put forward, we need them to address us. We need them to meaningfully consult with CSOs, with NGOs who, all of us here today have put forward recommendations, demands, and solutions. So what we see can actually be something that the government, both, who are serving and in opposition, to work with us to develop these plans, because we can't continue being terrified by taking public transport. We need a transit authority that really regulates and figure out how that public transport is actually going to be, maintained, the regularization of PH taxis and even H taxis, training for the taxi drivers, proper training for those that serve in the police service. You need to have a proper police complaints, authority as to what's going to happen after people make their reports. Many times people go to the police station and make reports about different instances and nothing comes out of it. But we have been protesting for years. This is not the first protest that we actually have planned, and it's not the first time we've listed demands. CAISO, the Alliance for State of Action, with several NGOs, have put together 6 demands since last year, and they continue to update those demands. And so we are really hoping for that change. And so we're out here doing the protest. We're seeking to raise awareness and to educate persons, but we really need, those on both the opposition and the serving bench to tell us something. We want to know what the plan is, what's the next steps.
When you saw, for example, the debate on the Evidence Amendment Bill right here at the Red House last Friday, and you saw the government and the opposition each putting their own political arguments forward concerning that bill, for example, the government saying that it is meant to protect women, the opposition is saying it won't. When you hear that sort of political debate in the parliament, what are your thoughts?
It's a very heartbreaking thing, because at the end of the day, time and time again, we see that the safety of women and girls isn't a priority exactly. We can't politicize issues of safety. We can't politicize gender-based violence, We have to really work together to ensure that persons are actually safe, because when we all die, we're going to just have grounds of graves. We have to ensure that persons aren't terrified. School actually opened today, right? And secondary school students have to travel. They don't have the privilege of being able to get dropped to school. They have to travel. And what are we telling them? That you can go to school to prepare for your exams and never return home? We have to really, really think about that and not leave women and girls terrified.
Do you think that protests like this and the one that occurred yesterday, for example, at the Savannah, are creating sort of a landmark moment for the issues that you've been calling for change, for attention for over the past few years?
Yeah, I think they're consistently being a landmark. But I think what makes this one a bit different is seeing it happen nationwide. and seeing so many people who probably have never protested before. There are people who were here today that said this is actually their first protest, and it seems as though people are actually waking up and realizing, oh my God, we really cannot just sit back and politicize everything and choose, parties and say we're not going to think about the people. But I feel like this is like, for me at least, I've seen people who actually are coming together, united under one cause, and that is prioritizing safety for women and girls.
Just one other thing, you did mention the issue of concerns about public transport. The police commissioner did mention at a press conference on Wednesday that the police will be looking at a system of a database for PH and taxis. Also, the Works Minister told TV6 News that the government is also looking at the issue of a registry for all vehicles in terms of public transport, in terms of better being able to monitor them and so on. Does that give you any sense of hope, or do you think that is something, because sometimes what happens is people feel as if they are plans, but they're not seeing the action. What are your thoughts on this?
That's right. I mean, it is something that it kind of reassures you in a way, because you know that, okay, there is some kind of, even if it's a fragment of a plan, but I think even if it has to work hand in hand with also training, because we could say, okay, we're going to regularize this and you're going to have a database, but at the end of the day, what is going to make a driver say, I'm not going to kidnap and rape someone? If there has to be some sort of mandatory training, hopefully it's something that can be instituted, where in order to be a driver, you need to do this course, you need to do something, get a certificate that you understand, do something in gender studies, you understand what gender-based violence is, you understand, the small talk with women when in a front seat and they're visibly uncomfortable, you don't do that. It's little things that needs to happen, that has to work in tandem with, these legislation and these plans, because plans mean nothing if behavior doesn't change.
In another item out of Port of Spain, Drug Susu founder Karen Clark was charged on Tuesday with 2 counts of money laundering contrary to Section 45(1)(b) of the Proceeds of Crime Act. More in this TV6 news item.
Welcome back. Drug Susu founder Karen Clark was charged today with 2 counts of money laundering, contrary to Section 45(1)(b) of the Proceeds of Crime Act. A TTPS statement says the decision to lay the charges followed advice the police received from the Director of Public Prosecutions, Roger Gaspard. Clark, a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, will appear before a Port of Spain magistrate tomorrow morning. He was arrested last Saturday after police executed a search warrant at his La Hokata home. Deputy Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob said a probe continues into the seizure of $7.7 million in cash in La Hokata several months ago.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In this story out of Guyana, Abdel Nur speaks about the alleged plot to blow up the John F. Kennedy International Airport. Nur, who returned home in December last year, said America did what they wanted while he professed his innocence. Here are the details from HGP's Travis Chase.
Guyanese Abdel Nur, who was sentenced to 15 years in prison in 2011 after a U.S. court found him guilty of taking part in a plot to detonate fuel tanks at the John F. Kennedy International Airport, is for the first time on camera clearing his mind through his throat. The evidence to convict Nur and others came from a convicted drug dealer and paid informer who contributed financial and logistical support to the plotters and secretly recorded their conversations. Nur said when he had first met the informer in Trinidad while he was on a business trip, there was no discussion about a plot to blow up the JFK airport.
I had no knowledge of no plot, of no terrorism. I never discussed nothing about no plot, about the JFK plot. Nothing such period. In no period, no time at all.
Mr. Nur, whose real name is Compton Eversley, was one of 4 men accused of plotting to blow up the tanks in what federal authorities of the United States said was a plan to cause a chain reaction along a pipeline that would damage vast areas of New York City. 2 of the conspirators, Russell De Freitas, a Guyanese as well, and former cargo handler at the JFK airport, and Abdul Qadir, a former member of parliament, were also convicted of conspiring to commit acts of terrorism. Abdul Qadir died in prison on the 28th of June 2018. Since then, the U.S. has labeled Mr. Nur a Guyanese terrorist.
Guyana don't have terrorists. Guyana, it is impossible. Guyana is so small, struggling. to uplift the Islamic standard in the country, and Guyana don't have to.
Noor was also accused of seeking the help of militant Muslims and at least one Al-Qaeda operative. Noor is professing his innocence, but in 2010 he pleaded guilty.
Abdul Noor, I know you're innocent, but this is America. America don't care but you. You is just another black man. My lawyer tell me that. Don Noble, he's a Jew, right? And he said, you have a chance to come out of prison. If you don't take this plea bargain and you go to trial, you would get life in prison just like the rest of them. They didn't get sentenced yet, but he's telling me what the system is going to do.
Noor alleges that it was the government of the day which had its way while he was arrested.
This was the setup by the United States government, who was in power at that time, which was the Republican government. At the time that we was locked up, the Republican government was in power. So the political strife in that time was to cry wolf. Americans, they cry wolf. The wolf is coming, and it's not like that.
Noor, who is now 71 years old, said that he's glad that he's free from incarceration and closer to his family. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.
The question is, could St. Lucia weather a proposed 10-day COVID-19 lockdown? The Civil Service Association believes it's one way to beat back rising COVID-19 cases. However, Prime Minister Alan Shastany says such a plan will not work.
Prime Minister Alan Shastany has taken note of the Civil Service Association's call for a total 10-day lockdown to reduce the mountain of COVID-19 cases. The CSA outlined its recommendation in a press release dated Monday, February 8th. Shastany addressed the issue when he phoned into the Radio 100 morning program, What Makes Me Mad, with host Andre Paul on Tuesday.
So the CSA is saying, by virtue of that fact, we need to take extreme measures, and that one of these measures includes a lockdown.
Well, I kept on turning over to the other page of their statement to find out how they were going to contribute to that lockdown. So who's going to pay the salaries? 80 cents of every dollar that a civil servant gets comes from the taxes from the private sector. 40 cents comes directly from the tourism sector. So if you shut down the private sector any more than we have it right now, where's the money going to come from?
Government officials, more so Prime Minister Alan Shastany, have stated that the island's economy could ill afford a complete lockdown, and given limited revenues, the recommended 10-day lockdown, by the current administration's account, appears to be a daunting undertaking, which could be fiscally ruinous for the state.
I'm not in a position to go and borrow any more money. We've borrowed as much as we possibly can, and that space that we had came out of the success that we've had for the last 4 years and the relationships we've developed.
Mr. Prime Minister, what about those, considered non-essential workers? Those workers now who have been negatively impacted over the last week or so because they have to shut down their business during the curfew. Is the government do you have anything in place in terms of, like in Barbados, some sort of remittance, I don't know, through the government itself or the NIC to ensure that, you can tide these people over?
So we don't have a unemployment insurance program. So that's what made what the NIC did with the $80 million support that they gave was unique. And we had to go to Parliament to get the approval to do that.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.